Hi everyone, welcome along to the Desire, Dream, Vision podcast. Thanks so much for checking us out. Got a great episode on the way for you this week. Remember, hit the subscribe button whether you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on one of the many podcast streams. So this week the podcast is brought to you in association once again with my friends at D'Artagnan's Menswear. Make sure you check them out. They've got some great stuff on the website. Follow them on social media as well at D'Artagnan Men's. So, this episode this week, I can't wait to share with you. It's a guy who I've known for a few years now. Many of you will know him because he won the XFactor, but he's gone on to have an amazing career. It's been incredible. He was the first XFactor winner to do 4 albums. He has then gone on to be a star of the stage as well, playing one of the biggest musical theatre characters that there pretty much is. He's a great guy. It's a great conversation. His new single's just coming out. It's amazing how he manages his career. You're going to hear so much from him in this podcast. So please enjoy as we have a great conversation with the one and only Mr. Joe McElderry. Thank you so much for joining us on the Desire, Dream, Vision podcast. It's amazing to have you with us.
Thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
Amazing. The question I'm really enjoying kicking off with in this series is all about how are you? 2020 was incredibly tough and 2021 has started pretty much in the same vein. And, you know, it's very dangerous on social media that we see everyone's kind of happy face and happy place. But, you know, how have you found it? You know, I think it's important we ask that question and how are you?
I think I've had my moments like everybody has. The first bit, I don't know about you, but I've kind of compartmentalized the whole pandemic in lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3. And each one's been its own different journey. So the first one, if I'm being completely honest, and I think a lot of people felt like this in the first sense, it was something we'd never experienced before. So it was kind of, we're all in this together. We're all rallying around. We're going outside. We're clapping every Thursday and we're doing fundraising to help everybody out and all of that kind of thing. And really brought out people's kind of community spirit, I felt. And, you know, I got into me running and exercise. And for the first time in 11 years, I'd never had that much time off. So it was a little bit of a kind of fresh novelty of just being like, oh, you know, nice to sit on my sofa. And then I think once I realized that it was going on for a long time, you started then to panic about work and future plans of things that were going ahead. And leading up to Christmas, I think the third lockdown was kind of like, oh, you know, well, second lockdown, I suppose, you were like, well, at least we've got Christmas to look forward to. And then I think certainly in this one, whilst it's been exciting having new music out and doing all of that, I'm just at that point now where I'm like, when does this end? Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And hopefully we're going to get something soon with the vaccine and everything. But the novelty's well and truly wore off now, I think, for everyone. And it's just sad. Like, it's sad to read how people are affected by it, how many people are dying from it. It's just, like, you know, we just need a bit of good news now. So yeah, it's been crazy, but I'm in a fortunate position to be where I am. I've got a roof over my head, don't have to worry about much, and I'm safe and I'm healthy. So I can't complain too much, but it's a crazy time.
Yeah, and your fans are incredible from looking at your social media and obviously, you know, as your support bubble been nice and strong for you, like with family and bits and pieces as well, that they've all been there for you.
Yeah, I'm lucky, you know, we all, like where I live back, and I'm lucky that I live in my hometown anyway. So I'm near all my family and friends, and we all live within walking distance. So when we've been allowed, we've been able to meet up outside and go for walks. You know, I've got friends who are literally in London and their family are in Scotland and they can't get to them. You know what I mean? So I'm lucky in that sense that I've got everybody near us. And obviously when we were allowed, we were able to have people in the garden and sitting in the garden and things like that. So we just got to push through this bit, you know, and I think we're nearly there. And it's the last hurdle now, and we've just got to get through it. And, you know, like we were saying before we started recording this, you know, like so much of our world of work is being around people and social interaction and, you know, and the hustle and bustle of it all. And it's just strange not having any of that.
No, completely agree with you on that. Next question is like, what have you learned about yourself in this period? I think it's been interesting because, you know, I think as we've alluded to when we were chatting earlier as well, is that we've never had this much time off. You know, when you work in the entertainment industry and you work in broadcast, you're constantly gig to gig and event to event, meeting people, being social. But actually, I found it quite an interesting process to kind of reflect a little bit and understand my journey a little bit more. Have you learned anything about yourself and how you do things that through lockdown?
I've learned that I push through. I push through a lot of things, you know, like kind of, I kind of, yeah, I'm like, okay, right, okay, let's do this instead. I don't kind of let things stop us in my tracks, you know, because I think certainly like at the back end of last year, we kind of, when we thought things were going back to normal, we had things announced and we were setting things up ready to go when it was allowed. And I think I've just learned that, like, yeah, I'm like a ping pong ball. I bounce off the wall of rejection. I'm like, okay, we'll go somewhere else then, you know? So yeah, I've learned that about myself. And like, I'm a grafter. I'll graft in any way, shape or form as possible. But yeah, I've learned that I've definitely learned that I thrive off being busy a little bit too much. And I need to learn how to enjoy the calm a bit more and not panic about things being calm. Because I think so much of my job is running at 100 miles an hour. And that's just as bad for you as sitting still and not doing anything, you know? So I'm trying to find the balance, which I'm learning about myself.
That's good. I love that analogy of the ping pong ball with rejection. That's brilliant. I love that. That's so relatable. I'm exactly the same. Just, okay, we'll go do that. That's amazing. Right, let's talk about your journey, because I think it's incredible. I've obviously been aware of you, from right back in 2009 and been lucky to know you a bit more over the last couple of years. How did it all begin? Like, let's talk pre-2009 and X Factor. Was performing always the dream and ambition? Was that always the goal for you?
Well, it wasn't really. I wanted to be a paramedic or a nurse. Well, I wanted to be a doctor first, but then I realized I wasn't intelligent enough. And I was fascinated by medicine. I was fascinated by hospitals. I really wanted to work in one. I did my work experience in a hospital. And I kind of started my A-levels to train to do some sort of degree in either nursing or medicine in some way, shape or form. And then halfway through that, I kind of started singing just before that, from about 14. But it was kind of a side kind of hobby. I used to do it at karaoke things, a few charity gigs, things like that. And then I really got the bug for it when I was about 17, kind of going into A-levels. So I quit the A-levels and left college where I was going and reapplied for a different college to go to a performing arts to do a diploma. And then halfway through that was when I kind of thought, you know what, I'm going to give the X Factor a try. I'd already tried it a couple of years previously and I left a boot camp. I just freaked out and just decided it wasn't for me. I didn't have enough confidence. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back and give it a go. So I did. And obviously the rest is history, but it wasn't, I think I always loved performance and I loved performers and going to see concerts and stuff, but I don't think I ever saw myself being a performer until I was about 16, 17.
Amazing. That transition period there, when you're making that call of, right, I'm going to bin these A-levels off, I'm going to go do something else. How difficult of a decision was that for you? Because I think anyone, when they're committed to university or college or something like that, you know, the big discussion of I'm leaving, I'm quitting, I'm going to do something else is always like a big hurdle, isn't it? How was that moment for you?
Well, I had a conversation with my mom and she kind of said, listen, if you're interested in singing and you want to do this as a career, I will support you for like 5 years while you get on your feet, see what you can do. You know, like you don't have to get a job or anything like that. I'll give you a 5-year window to kind of pursue it. But then we need to have a back, because, you know, it for a lot of people, it's not a realistic career, you know, and little did I know that what was going to happen was going to happen. But I've seen it happen to many other people that they try for years and years and years. And it's a tough industry to get into. So I think she was being realistic in that sense of like, have a backup plan and then go hell for leather with it until you either make it happen or don't, kind of thing. So it was quite a non-stressful decision because I knew I had that support. But I reckon had we been nearing the 5-year mark and nothing had happened, I would have been like, oh, what are we going to do now? You know, but you know, it's fun because I still have that thought now. You know, even years after, 12 years down the line, after all of the success that I've had, I still have those thoughts now of thinking, because I'm only 30. You know what? And I'm thinking, I've had a very long career so far, but I've still got a long way to go, you know?
Yeah.
Well, praise the Lord. And so I still have that now, you know, I still have them moments where I'm like, oh God, do I need to have a backup plan? I think everybody thinks like that because you always think it's never going to last.
Yeah, no, completely. I think it's tough as well because you kind of, when I always think about backup plans, like I'm quite lucky, I've got a few little irons in different fires. And you're like, well, if this doesn't quite work out, I've got this. But you don't want to take your attention off the thing that you really love. It's a real difficult balance, isn't it? Finding that balance on that.
and it's hard, and it's a tough industry. I think people think once you've, well, and I use this term lightly, once you've made it, then that's like everything's just fine then. But I actually, it's harder to create longevity than in the industry than it is to actually just make it in that terms, I think. You know, I think the process of surviving the industry and producing something new that people want to stay interested in every year and doing something is way harder than that one kind of moment at the beginning that tips everything off, you know?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I like looking at people like Sir Bruce Forsyth and Cliff Richard and those kind of guys, the Des O'Connors, those greats from back in the day, that their career was just so long because they just kept reinventing. And exactly what you've said, it's all about, right, what does the audience want? What do those people want? And how do I fulfill that? So that's nice to know that is still a thought process that a lot of people are still thinking about today. And it's not just a thing of the past, you know, because fingers crossed we're going to be having this discussion when you're 60 and you're still going.
Oh, I hope so. Well, actually, yeah. I mean, it's funny because I feel like I've been doing this longer than 12 years because it's flown by in some senses, and then in other senses, it's like, God, I was such a different person back on X Factor. It's like it feels like years and years ago. It doesn't just be like 12 years. So yeah, I hope I am. But what I said when I first came out of the show in 2009, I was asked all the time, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I always used to reply and say, one, I hope I'm still doing it. And two, I hope I still enjoy it as much as I do now. So now I've made it to that point, I will say, yes, I hope I'm doing it, but I hope I still love it as much as I do, because I still love it as much as I did then. So I hope if I get the opportunity to do another 10 years, we'll do it in 10-year blocks. That's the most realistic thing, I think.
I like that, and the passion's great as well. So what made you go back in 2009 then? You mentioned that you'd gone before and you kind of boot camp and no, it's not for me. What was the difference in 2009 that made you stick the course?
I think confidence. I think confidence in terms of like, I trusted myself a lot more as a performer. I trusted my own kind of gut instinct a bit more. I wasn't as fazed by the cameras and the whole process, I think, of being famous. I think just matured, you know. I think 15, actually I think I might be 14 when I went on the first time, 14 or 15 to 18 is quite a big jump, I think, in terms of maturity. And I just matured a bit more, and I trusted myself as a person a bit more, I think. So, but I mean, having said that, I was still terrified going through the whole process, but I knew how to kind of cope with it a bit more.
And let's talk about the process, because, you know, it is grueling. You do the auditions, and I don't think people realize how early in the year the auditions are. And then you have the boot camp, and, you know, we watched the live judges' houses, and that was like maybe like 3 or 4 weeks before. And, you know, you're busy then rehearsing and doing all the promotional stuff for it. When I speak to a lot of athletes, they say in a competition, they get to a point where they know they've got a chance and they know that they're potentially going to get to a final and win that. Your journey on the X Factor, was there any kind of comparison to that in a performer's sense, that once you got to a certain stage, you thought, do you know what, I can do this?
So I did week by week. So I had little goals along the way. So the first bit was like, well, you know what, if I get boot camp, it'd be really nice because then it'd be shown on television and I might get a little bit of work off the back of it. When I got through to there, I thought, well, if I can get to judges' houses, that would be really exciting because then you get to go to a different country and film the show out there, and it's kind of a big episode to make it do. And then once I got to the live shows, it was literally week by week. I think the first kind of goal post for me was, I don't want to be the first one to go out. So if I can make it to week 2. And then once I got to week 2, I said, well, if I make it to week 5, then at least I'll be on the X Factor tour. And then I think after that, I was in the game then. I was competitive. I practiced continuously. And then I remember when I got to the final, on the night of the semi-final, I saw my mum afterwards in the canteen area. And she went, well, you know what? You've made it to the final now. Like you've made it to the end. And I just looked down. I was like, no. I want to win it now. So I knew at that point, if I'm in the final, I'm in it to win it. I'm not just in the final to go, oh, well, I made the final, you know? And I am very competitive, but I'm silently competitive. I'm not competitive in a ruthless kind of way to others. I'm kind of competitive with myself. So I had my head down. If you ask anybody that was on the show with me, I rehearsed 24/7, like to make sure I knew my words, to make sure I knew what I was doing. So yeah, competitive only with myself, really.
And you seem to have the perfect judge as well to be mentoring you and working with you as well. You know, we kind of see the judges, they sit there and critique everyone. Did you get a lot of hands-on time with them? Are they as hands-on as it's made to look with making you, you know, that product for the show?
I think people forget as well, you know, that there's a whole team of people that work behind the show as well, in terms of the producers and the choreographers and everything. And they are all very hands-on. You know, the judges are the kind of the top bit of that. And I spent quite a lot of time with Cheryl in terms of in the dressing room, and she was really hands-on with me in her category. Some of the other judges aren't as hands-on, but they're still there all the time, you know, and they're still in the sound checks and filming and things like that. But to be honest with you, like, you can be as hands-on as you want, but it's how you deliver yourself on the Saturday night is what, do you know what I mean? Like, they can only tell you, they can only give their opinion and tell you what they want from you the next week. But at the end of the day, it's down to you to deliver it. Like, you have to be hands-on with yourself. And because there was people in the show, and I would never say who, but there was people in the show who did not rehearse as much as other people. And then when they went out there on the Saturday night, they weren't as prepared. You know, and I always say that to people. They go, "What? How do you combat nerves? How do you do this and that?" And the key is to being so prepared that even if it goes wrong, you know how to get yourself out of that position, because you know it's so in and out that it doesn't affect you. You know, because everybody goes on and forgets words and forgets a bit of choreography. But if you know it so well, if you have that little blip in your head like that, you can snap straight back into it because you're so in the zone and you're not thinking about what's the next line, where's the next step, which camera do I need to look at? So I used to know everything. I used to know where the camera was. I used to know which camera I was going to have to look at. I had it all mapped out in my head, but I didn't make a big thing of that. I just would go into the room and kind of apply it to me performance, and then I'd be ready, you know, and I'd be terrified before I went on. But I knew what I had to do. When I went out there, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, I love that. I think the process is so key, isn't it? It's just making sure you're 110% prepared. I love that. That's awesome. There's a moment from that series that I still watch on YouTube because it kind of gives me hairs on the back of the neck. Because I love music, and you know, I'm one of those guys that really wanted to be a pop star, but just didn't have the talent to do it. But I just love it. I'll kind of sing in the shower, and you know, I'm lucky I've done the odd musical or whatever. But nothing is definitely no voice nowhere near as good as you guys. But I remember watching that final and you performing, and all of a sudden going, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome George Michael." And I kind of grew up with his music, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is insane." And for me, I look at that moment and go, for you, I don't know how you were able to comprehend that, because you're in a final, you're in a competition, you're on live TV, and here you are singing with George Michael. That must have been mind blowing for you.
It was a, you know, I think first of all, George Michael is an absolute musical legend, icon, like top of his game, writer, producer, artist, singer, everything. So I think he's well respected in the industry anyways, but I think as a vocalist and a male vocalist, he's one of the top best voices in the world ever, you know, and he's renowned for that. So to have the opportunity, like literally less than 12 weeks into your career, well, really, not even your career, before it's even started, really, to be able to sing with somebody like him and as respected, but also for him to be so complimentary and so given of his time and everything, was just, honestly, I mean, if it had have all stopped there, I could have been happy with that. You know, it was an amazing experience, and he was so lovely, so professional, so humble, and just, yeah, like I couldn't find enough nice things to say about him, because he was just wonderful.
Did you get much time like beforehand to rehearse? Because I remember seeing an interview, and I can't remember who it was with now, and they got to that kind of similar stage, and they got to perform with this amazing artist, and they're like, "Yeah, we just didn't really even rehearse. We were just looking at each other of like, you take the next line, go on, I'll go, then you go."
I mean, we rehearsed on the day, like we rehearsed at like probably about 4 p.m. on the day of the final. So not a lot of time. He arrived, he was stuck in traffic actually. They got stuck on, I don't know where he was coming from, but his car that was bringing him to the studio got stuck in gridlock traffic on the M25. So I was actually on stage waiting for him to arrive, and they said, "Oh, he's caught in traffic. They phoned ahead. He's going to be late." And so I was stood on the stage, and they're like, "Well, we can't really do anything else until you've rehearsed, so we'll just hang about in the studio." And And then all of a sudden, this little assistant came out, and she kind of taps on the shoulder and was like, Joe, can you just come with me a minute? She was like, George wants to meet you backstage before he comes out. And they took us backstage, and he was just stood behind the big screens, and he just said, listen, I didn't think it was very professional to like come on stage and meet you in front of everyone. He was like, so I'm George. It's a pleasure to be here today. I want to make this all about you. He's like, come on, let's walk out together. And he was just so professional and like really nice. And I think he probably understood as well, like the magnitude of him just walking onto the stage to me would have been quite intimidating. So he kind of took it off the stage out the way of everyone. And that one of the reasons why I just think what an absolute pro, you know. He read the room, and obviously he was late as well, not by his fault, but it was really nice how he did it all. And then we sang the way through, and he said, why are you not singing the harmonies? Because obviously George Michael famously had them huge harmonies at the end chorus. And I said, well, he said, well, I said, well, you know, the vocal coach was stood next to me, and she was like, well, we assumed you might. And he was like, no, he's like, this is your moment. He's like, you take all the high notes, like they're yours, take them. So then I'm having a meltdown, be like, what's the harmonies? I haven't learned the harmonies. So yeah, he gave me everything. He was like, I am here for you. This is your moment. This is not my moment. Like this is about making you look as good as possible. So take all of the best bits, which was brilliant.
Yeah, amazing. I just remember watching it as well, and you could see in your eyes like how much you were just like loving the moment and just in it. It was beautiful to watch. Like, and I always like to look at moments of people's career when they're kind of at the pinnacle or they're at a real kind of important moment. Can you remember that moment at all of just hitting that last note and just being stood next to him on like national TV in a final? Like that must have been incredible.
Sadly, I can't actually remember a lot of that weekend. I think I was running on such kind of like adrenaline, and also like I was in the zone. Like I was there. And also I think people forget, like that weekend, there was literally me and Dolly left in the competition. So we were running off stage and standing like literally behind the big screens as something else is going on, and getting fully dressed into a different outfit and changing things and getting your head ready for the next song to go out after the next VT played. So we were a part of that whole production of like keeping that train moving. So we had no time to take any of that in over that weekend, sadly, because I don't remember anything until I got back to the XFactor house on the Sunday night at about 4:00 in the morning. And I just remember just staring at the ceiling in absolute silence. And my mom had come back with us and thinking, what on earth has just happened? Like, it was the strangest feeling. And I can't remember any of it. So I liken it to going on a night out. And you know, when you've had a boozy night out, and the next morning you're trying to piece together the night out. It was like that. It was like my brain had just completely gone into overdrive and just erased everything else around the room to just get through the adrenaline, you know, and the kind of, and the intensity of the nerves of that night. I think my brain just went into a complete tunnel vision of just like, that's the end point. That's where I'm getting you to. Straight. It's really straight. I've never had that feeling again. It's weird.
Yeah, and I guess as well, it with that process as well, you then see straight away that you're going straight into promo to get a #1 single, like try and get a Christmas #1. Like, you know, at what point, obviously your life changed dramatically. Was there a point where like the wheels just stopped just for a couple of moments that you could take it all in? Because it just seems with that kind of competition, when you win, it's like, right, bang, here we go now. Your life is never going to be the same again.
Yeah, well, we went home that night at 4 a.m. And I was picked up at about 5:30 to go straight to GMTV. GMTV was still a thing then, and which is now obviously Good Morning Britain. And I got picked up to go there. So I'd literally had less than 45 minutes sleep. And I'd just done the most insane schedule. Like I'd already done about a, I don't know, 250-hour week previous, like of continuous work. So I was exhausted from day one of starting the promo, and obviously things just got busier. So I stopped work for Christmas the following Sunday after winning, so a week later, and I went to Radio 1 to find out if we got the #1, and obviously we'd had the whole Rage Against the Machine thing, which was a huge publicity thing. And I got in a car back to Newcastle, and I arrived home at 4 a.m. in the morning. And then I went up to, like, we had this cottage in Northumberland with all the family, just to kind of get away, because obviously everybody knew I was coming home as well. So like it was even intense here. So I was just like, I need to just go somewhere where nobody knows where I am. But I was still working from there. I was still having to do interviews and things on the phone and things like that. So then I think it was Boxing Day, I flew to Austria to go skiing with the family. And I remember the first time that I could stop and take it in was we went out skiing on the morning, and we got on this ski lift, and there was me, I think my mum and two of my cousins, and we just went up this ski lift, you know, as you sit on the ski lift, and it was just silent and there was nobody around. And I remember just looking and being like, what the has just happened? Like, that was the first moment where it just was like bang, and it was like the calm had ensued. I knew I was going to be there for a week. There wasn't many people there, and I was like, oh, I can finally take this in now. Like, it was like my body just went, whew, and relax. Like, that's just happened, you know?
Yeah. Do you know what? You're so right. There's something really interesting about going skiing. I had like a similar moment like a few years back, and I think it wasn't long after my nan had passed away, and I was just on this ski lift, and like there's something very special about being up in the mountains, and it's just so quiet, and it's the natural beauty. It's something very special about it. So it's nice to hear that you've kind of had a similar experience with that. It's nice.
Yeah, I think it was silent. It was silence. I think there was so much noise around us continuously. And it was the first time I'd heard like true silence in such a long time. And all you could hear was the ski lift rattling. And that was the only noise, you know, because it was really early in the morning. So there was no skiers on the mountain. We were kind of the first people up there. And the sun was shining, and we were climbing up the hill and the thing. And it was a beautiful day. And it was just like true. The first time I had proper peace and quiet in about 6 months. And it was like being slapped in the face. It was almost like the noise of the silence was noisier than the actual noise, if that makes sense.
No, massively. How did you deal with the relentlessness of it all? Because, you know, you hear about the music industry, and you mentioned already about getting up to be at Good Morning Britain and GMTV at stupid o'clock in the morning. And I remember as a kid watching stuff about S Club 7, and they were just really knackered, and they're like, literally, you're like the fifth interview and it's not even 7 o'clock yet. And I believe like passion is a massive part of that. If you love what you do, it kind of helps. But, you know, it just seemed for you were just constant, because I think you were the first X Factor winner to have 4 albums. You know, that whole initial part of your career was just so successful but relentless. How do you deal with that? Because I think sometimes when you're living the dream and it is relentless, it can be very easy to fall out of love with it, but it seems like you never did. So what was the secret to that?
um I don't think there is a secret to it, if I'm honest. I think you love what you do, so you kind of just do whatever comes as part of the package. I don't think it's an actual thought process of going, right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to love every second of it. Because like everybody, you know, I have days where I get up and I'm absolutely exhausted, like everybody does going to work, you know, but I love what I do. So when you do it, you're like, oh my God, this is brilliant, but I'm really tired. Like, so you know, it's kind of just like it's like the scales kind of just balancing all the time. But it does get relentless, you know, and it still does now. I think this year, again, just before we started recording this, I was saying to you, you know, I've realized that I work at 100 miles an hour all the time, like all the time when I'm working, and I do a project, and then something else comes in while I'm doing that project, and I go, yeah, I'll be there when this finishes. I'll do that, and before you know it, you've been on the go for like 8 months, doing 8 shows a week, like all the time. And I think if I've learned one thing in the pandemic, I've learned that just as bad as for your mind and brain, sitting still and not doing anything and having a routine is bad for you. It's bad working at that level all the time. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your voice. You know, it's not good for your brain, because what I found is I realized how much my work distracted me thinking process of everything else. Because when you're on that treadmill, you go, yeah, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that because I've got to do this. I've got to do this. Or I've got to get ready for the show tonight. So I don't want to know about that now. I'll sort that out at the end of the week. And then you never sort it out, you know? So I think sitting still, I've realized a lot, and I've been aware of things that I've never been aware of before. So yeah, it is relentless. And I think I've learned that maybe going forward, I'll have to make some changes in terms of like really sitting down and mapping out schedules. And I hope I'll do that. I feel like I feel like I'll probably work hell for leather for the first like year because I'll be so glad to be doing it again. But I think I'll be more careful about choosing what I'm going to do in terms of fitting in my life, you know, inside of it. Because I think if you love your job, it very easily takes over your whole life because you love it so much. So it's important to have the balance, I think.
Mm. I'd love to ask how you deal with adrenaline. I find with the presenting stuff that I do, and when I've done some stage stuff before, that you're on stage in front of 2,000 people, or you're at a football stadium in front of like 30,000 people, and then you get in your car to go home, and all of a sudden you've kind of gone from like right at the very pinnacle to, oh, I'm in the car on the way home now, just going back to myself at home. Like, how do you deal with that adrenaline? Because I sometimes find it quite tough of just, oh my God, that's amazing, amazing, amazing. Then 3 a.m. going, I really should sleep. And like,
I mean, for me, it's not so much about, I'm all right with the sleep. You know, sometimes if I've had a really like loud show or a brilliant show, or if I've got a little bit overexcited on stage, sometimes I'll struggle to sleep. But 9 times out of 10, my shows are quite physically demanding that I'm really tired by the end of it to the point where I need to sleep. But I do find I get like I do get really bad kind of adrenaline come downs in terms of it's like having a hangover the next day. So I get like really dull headaches from it. And I find like on a morning, it's really draining the next day. And it's obviously just the adrenaline of like spiking up and then that thing of it coming down. So I do struggle with that. But you just learn, you learn that that's just what it is. And then I get up and I do a workout, and I find that a workout kind of shakes it off again. It kind of gets the endorphins going and things. But I definitely get like adrenaline come downs, and people are like, what do you mean? And I'm like, the only way I can explain it is like, it's like having a hangover. I get like a really kind of dull headache, and it's and it's totally just, I spoke to somebody about it and said it's literally your body coping with the overuse of your adrenaline. You're thriving off like a natural adrenaline all the time, and it's putting it through the roof. And the next morning, it's like your body trying to adjust to that. So yeah, a nice Barocca sometimes sorts you out and helps.
Yeah, no, it's massive. I want to talk about a moment in your career which I've kind of had a similar experience with, and that's when you kind of left Psycho, because you know you've been part of Simon Cowell's management group since the XFactor, and then you decided it was time for a change. And when I left my agency years ago, and I think about 5 years ago now, and I swapped to who I'm with now, it was such a big risk, but it felt like it was right. And I just wanted to know how that time was for you, because obviously you felt there was a need for a change, but was there any uncertainty, and how did you deal with the transition?
Well, there's kind of 2 parts to the story, because obviously the management company are separate to Simon's label, even though they kind of they're intrinsically linked in terms of the dealings work together, and the contract was as a whole that you sign when you go on the show. So Simon's label chose not to do another album with me, which meant that the record label side of it was gone. The contract I was released. But I wasn't happy with the management either. And I knew that we weren't on the same wavelength. I knew that they kind of, and you know, this is nothing personal to them. I've got, you know, I don't have any kind of major issues with them. We just weren't the right fit. They didn't have the same outlook on my career. They were kind of just like, they used the same conveyor belt that they always use for everyone off that show. And I was like, I don't really feel like I'm going to have a long career if I just stay on that conveyor belt. I need to go off and get a team around us that want to work with me and want to kind of, you know, set our own map of where we want to go. So, yeah, it wasn't, I knew it was the right decision, but I literally, it all kind of came to a head just after during Popstar Opera Star. And I got rid of every single person that worked with us, and I won the show with no management, with no lawyer, I didn't have a lawyer actually. I had a lawyer. That was the one person that I did keep. I had no promoter. I had no booking agents for tour and everything. And I literally had to turn up to the record label that wanted to sign us the next day. I had nobody to facilitate any of that. So me and my mum rocked up to the meeting, like not having a clue how to thrash out a record deal. Because I was in the process of finding new management. But obviously I had to sign this record deal because I wanted it and I wanted to do it. So it was a crazy time. But I learned a lot, and I learned that you can do it and you can make things happen. And luckily, I got somebody in quite quickly to help us facilitate that all, who was a great friend of mine, and she worked in the industry, and she helped me through that transition period. But it was crazy But I knew it was the right decision, like you said. I knew it was what I had to do, but it didn't make it any less scary.
No, Matt, so I think it takes tremendous courage to do it as well, because it's like pulling a plaster off, isn't it? I remember sitting with a friend of mine just talking about it for like almost like 3 days. It felt like just going, look, we've done so well, we've got to here, and I don't want to lose these opportunities. But I feel like so it's an incredibly courageous thing to do. So it's nice to hear that you did it, and you did it with such confidence, and there was that little bit of trepidation, but actually made it work.
Yeah, and it's a comfort blanket, it's a comfort blanket, and they were a big company as well. So you know that you're like, oh God, am I making a bad decision? But I knew straight away. To be honest, I knew pretty much straight away I'd made the right decision, and I've got no hard feelings towards them, and I'm sure they probably haven't to me either. But I knew it was the right thing, and I the one thing I've always done throughout me, certainly in work decisions, I've always trusted my gut instinct. If I've got a good gut instinct about something or a bad gut instinct, I follow it. And it normally leads you to the right place.
No, 100%. And something that always happens is you always seem to win, because you won Pop Star to Opera Star, and then 2014 you go on the jump and you win that as well. I guess that's down, like listening to what you said already about the X Factor. You just rehearsed and you gave it 1,000,000%. I'm guessing you do that with everything you do, which hence the reason why you survived the jump with no injuries and went and won.
Well, I mean, I wasn't supposed to be in the show, and I went in last minute they basically, all the people that were out there who were in the show were injured or had to leave on medical grounds because of injuries. And I knew one of the producers, and I was actually on a skiing holiday at the time, and she contacted my management and said, listen, we really need him to come in because we know that he can ski. He doesn't need to train because he's already to the standard that the other celebs have started on. So I went in kind of by an accident. It was really last minute with like 3 days to spare before the live shows. So that was strange. But I loved it. I loved that. And I think because of the background of X Factor and the other shows, I knew how to cope in the pressure of a reality show. So I wasn't faced by the kind of TV side of it and the live show side. And I treated like a performance. I went into the processes the same way as I was getting ready to go in the zone for a show. I treated exactly the same. And yeah, I just kind of was like, this is the job. This is the task. Get on with it. Don't think about it. It's mind over matter sometimes.
100% it is. We've touched earlier on about the career, and you've kind of you've always evolved and looked to evolve, and we touched on that a little bit earlier on. And I love the fact that musical theatre, I remember on the X Factor, I think it was Simon one week that kind of said you had this kind of musical feel about your performances. And you got the chance to play Joseph. I know you've done Panto and you've done lots of other theatre stuff as well. But Joseph's one of my favourite musicals. And I remember reading a review that pretty much said you were the best Joseph ever, like vocally. And, there's some big names that have played Joseph, from like Schofield, Donovan, Mead and all that. And how was that for you playing Joseph? Because that's such an iconic role and it was an incredible tour.
I paid them well for that review. What can I say? But yeah, it was great, and obviously to have that accolade, like for somebody to write that, and a really well-respected theatre critic as well that did that, which was, you always worry about when the critics come to see shows because they can be quite brutal. And the guy, Mark Shenton, who's really respected, he's quite a brutally honest reviewer, and people respect his opinion. So when they told us he was coming, I don't really normally like to know that people are coming to the show to review it, and I don't really read reviews. I kind of go, nah, too much of a good thing's bad and too much of a bad thing. Stay in the middle. But then the next day I got an email to the management from the production company. They were like, oh my God, look, this is what he said and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. But, to play a role like that is really special because people love that show and they've got such an affection to the show. And everybody remembers where they first saw Joseph and how it made them feel. So to be a part of that history and to have it so well received as well as being part of it was amazing. I've got, I met some of my best friends on that show that I've stayed great friends with people on there, and just the audiences and the warmth that show brings just through its music and nostalgia it is a special thing to be a part of, and I've got nothing but fond memories of it. And the music's great, like the minute every night. We did that show 10 times a week as well, which is a hell of a schedule. And every single time that music used to start at the beginning, you know, dun, 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 dun. You'd be stood in the wings and you'd be like, you know what, this is like, no matter how tired you were, the minute that started, I was like, right, I'm ready. Here we go, let's do it.
Yeah, massively. It's such a great. It's one of my favorites. I absolutely love that show. And it also seeing the timing was quite right on that show as well, because I can't quite remember if it was an anniversary, but there were like so many other opportunities. So I remember seeing you perform with like Jason Donovan and Philip Schofield, and then there was like Saturday Night Takeaway as well. It just kind of seemed a perfect alignment that Joseph kind of opened up even more doors for you.
Well, it was the 50th. I finished the tour in the kind of year of the 50th anniversary. So because I was kind of the only person playing the role of that moment, I ended up getting included in all of these really fun celebration performances. So we did the big 50th anniversary performance with Lee Mead, Jason Donovan, Danielle Hogue, Lindsay Hately, Priya Kalidas. We closed the Olivier's, which was like, you know, and I'm stood there in the middle, like next to Jason Donovan with the full coat on. I'm like, just he not be wearing it, not me. But, and then obviously doing it Saturday Night Takeaway was brilliant. That was a really kind of fun comedy moment that we did with Anthony Deck and James Corden and Philip Schofield. So yeah, I've performed with all the iconic Josephs, which has been really nice. Really nice to see I've done that as well.
And did you get to keep the coat?
I didn't get to keep the coat, actually. I didn't.
Oh, no.
But the one thing as well is, you know, like they're all so iconically known for playing those roles. So to get to perform it with them and see you've done that as well over the years is really special, because, you know, everybody remembers them for playing them roles as well. And when I signed up to do the show, I was like, I don't want people to say I'm the worst.
Massively. Well, you definitely weren't the worst. I remember I saw up in Liverpool and it was incredible. So you did an amazing job of it. Let's talk about right now, because we've talked about lockdown and, you know, it's been a difficult time. But in the middle of all this, you've got a new single out, which is epic, by the way. Absolutely love it. And the music video looked great. And you were telling me a story before, which I'd love you to share on this. It seems like you have like real control of your career now. And I think that seems like really important. And I think that's something that comes across with how you speak about it, that it's really important that you've got that control.
Yeah, I mean, I've always fought for that, you know, and I'm not stupid with it. You know, I know in certain situations you can't have control of everything. You can't control everything in a business. But I kind of worked really hard when I was talking before about getting a new team involved and everything. I really was one thing for me that I really was massively passionate about was not being tied into like really onerous contracts, you know, and not like kind of being locked into things for years and years on end. And so when I signed with the new management company, that was one of the specifics that I said to them. I said, I'm just going to tell you that before we start working together, I do not want to be locked into contracts where I have to deliver certain amounts of things by this point in time, and pressurizing situations where all the decisions are made like behind my back and I have no control. So we've worked really hard over the years to kind of create a whole industry in-house. You know, I do a lot of things in-house. We do all my own tours in-house, you know, like obviously, you know, I work for other companies, but I work for companies that I want to work with, you know, and I am really because I love the music industry, and it, you know, it's still a very ruthless and unfair industry at times, you know, towards the artist. So I try and keep things in-house as much as possible and keep that control, so that you're not being kind of dictated to by other people, you know, and that is difficult at times because, you know, it's a tough old industry to survive in, but we've made it work so far, and I'm proud of what we've kind of achieved in-house. So yeah, doing this single in lockdown, you know, I've done it all off my own back, and we've done it all from scratch, working with the writers, and I've picked the team of people that I want to be involved with it, from the label services to the social media to the PR to the radio pluggers, everything. And we've done it the kind of the opposite way around, which is, you know, it's a lot harder work, and it's, but it's a lot more rewarding when you know you have that control. And you can say, actually, I want to put this out tomorrow, or actually, I don't want to do that, or this is the song I want to make, let's make it happen. And not have a load of people going, well, we don't think that fits with this, and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's nice having that control, but it's a little bit more stressful, but it's worth it.
Yeah, massively. It's like your responsibility, isn't it? Like it kind of, which is nice, but it brings that added pressure. And the music video looked great as well, by the way. But you were saying, like, all of a sudden you're responsible for everyone's safety because you're kind of filming in a COVID secure way.
Yeah. We shot the video at the end of the summer last year. So obviously the restrictions have eased quite a bit. You allowed the bubbles of 6, people were allowed in restaurants, and things had kind of opened up again. And we didn't realize we were going back as strict as we obviously have now. So we had all the tests and the temperature things and the masks and the sanitizers. But like on the day, obviously none of us, I had 4 dancers. I wanted a nightclub full of people. And obviously we weren't allowed that. I had 4 dancers with us. And it was just weird, like being back in that environment for a day after like not, being on a video set, being in the production side of things and creating. But it was stressful because, I felt responsible for people's safety. Luckily everybody was okay, and we put the restrictions in place to make sure they were, the regulations, sorry. But I was really stressed on the day because I was like, I feel responsible that it's my video. I don't want anybody to get ill, and so I was like, get away from there, you do this and social distance. And everyone was like, Joe, stop micromanaging. We put the things in place. Everybody's safe. It's fine.
That's amazing. At the end, I'll get you to tell us all the details so we can get hold of that new single as well, because it's really good. Absolutely love it. Cool. Let's talk about something that I love talking about, which is failure and negativity, because I think we fail every day. An analogy I love to use is I saw it once on a YouTube video, which is, if you don't make your bed in the morning, you failed before you've even started. It's how they kind of train the army and they train the Marines and stuff in America, which is quite interesting. And we do it as kids, right? We fall over and we get up again. We don't just give up and lay there and go, I'm just not going to bother with walking. Just bring me food and drink. How have you dealt with that? Because, you've got an amazing social media channel, and we hear so much about trolling and people being nasty on social media, and not everyone is going to like your new single, but there's going to be lots and lots of people that love it, and it's the same in every single industry. So how do you deal with that?
I think age massively helps. I think you learn to just switch off from certain things. I think the problem that social media is wonderful, right? And I think we've all realized how wonderful it is during times when you can connect, like now, like Zoom, like Instagram lives, online shows, streaming events, Twitter, Facebook, people making videos together from their houses. It's great, but it's also give everybody the right to have an opinion on every single thing that happens at every given moment of the day, and think that they can just write whatever they want and it doesn't affect anyone, and that's just not true. So I think if I'm very lucky that I don't receive a lot of kind of troll and hate and stuff. But, you get the odd people that, some people just want to say something about everything, and you just have to learn to be okay with that and not let it into your aura of kind of positivity. So, I still get things. I still get people making comments. I still get people doing things like that. But I've learned not to let it ruin my day. There's a very great thing where you can mute people and block them. And I try, every now and again, I'll have a little kind of comedy pop back at them. But and I try and make it quite fun. And what I've realized is, if you're really nice to a troll, and you say like, "Oh, have a lovely day," it really throws them and they don't know what to do, because almost they feed off you kind of having that reply back and engaging in an argument. So I try and add a little bit of sarcasm, but I always put something nice at the end, and it throws them. It genuinely, they can't quite comprehend why you're being nice to them, which I quite like.
Yeah, kill them with kindness. It's always the way. The amount of situations that I've had where people are trying to having a grievance, an issue over nothing, and you just send them a really polite letter, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay," and they disappear. It's quite funny.
Well, I don't let it ruin my day anymore. Sometimes it catches you off guard. If somebody writes something, you're like, "Oh, that made us feel like rubbish," but I don't let it stew and sit with us for a long time. I give myself half an hour to be angry at it, and then I'm like, right, throw it out the window, off it goes, And also, we make the choice to go on social media as well. So if it's really affecting you that much, come off it for a few days, and I think in lockdown and stuff, you spend hours scrolling and stuff, and if it's making you feel bad, step away from it for a little bit, because we don't have to use it.
No, completely. Right, final three, like quick fire, shortish questions. Peak and pit, highlight and low light of your career, but they're moments that you wouldn't change.
Ooh. I think highlight is probably, I mean, I've got loads of highlights. That's a hard one. Do you know what? I'll say most recently, actually, a highlight has been releasing the new single and seeing the reaction to it and being able to do it in such a limited and restricted time with what's been going on. So that's a highlight recently. A low light would probably be what I was talking about before when I was changing management behind the scenes after Pop Start Star and everything was, and it felt like I was having huge success in front of everybody, but behind the scenes, it was all just chaos and madness and, you know, contracts and like lawyers and all of that kind of thing. So maybe that, but I wouldn't change it because I wouldn't be where I am today without that happening. So that's probably the low light.
Yeah, massively. I find that with the low lights most of the time that it is that kind of eye of the storm, which kind of feels like it's the end of the world potentially, but it creates so much beauty the other side of it. It's amazing. One of the key Desire, Dream, Vision principles is about inspiration. So what inspires you when you're having one of those days and you just need that little bit of light at the end of the tunnel? Who's your inspiration?
You know what? I get so much love and support online. Like what I was saying, from fans and followers that have supported my career like avidly for 12 years, and they show up to the shows and they buy the music and they invest in whatever I do. That kind of inspires me. You know, if I'm having a bit of a day where I'm feeling rubbish about something, I'm like, you know what, we've created such a beautiful together, you know, with my music and us as a kind of collective of people, like at my shows and concerts and things, we've created such a beautiful connection through all of that. That's really inspiring. So when I'm kind of having a rant about the industry or I'm like, oh, this really annoys me, I think how wonderful that side of it all is. And I'm like, that's why we do it, you know?
Amazing. And finally, your key to success. If someone was to say, Joe, I need a bit of advice, what would be your one key that I need to follow and put into place?
I think you mentioned it before. Don't be afraid to fail. I think far too many people, they don't take the risk because they're frightened that they might fail. But if you take the risk and you fail, you learn so much that it's worth the failure anyways, you know? And I think as I've gotten older, I'm not as scared about like failure or rejection. I take it on the chin and I go, you know what did I learn from it? And like I said before, you know, it's like, you're like I call it the ping pong ball. You hold the ping pong ball and you just bounce off that wall of rejection, bounce off it, find another wall to hit, you know? And there's, you know, just because one person doesn't like something or one person doesn't see your vision or your dream or believe in you, doesn't mean that 10 other people, you know, won't or will, you know? So don't take one person saying, oh, we don't like that, we don't want to invest in that, we don't want to do that. You go, okay, all right, that's fine, then I'll find somebody else to do it, and if they don't want to do it, I'll do it myself.
Amazing. Do you know what? Such wise words. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Before I let you go, tell us where we can get our hands on this new single, because as I said, I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. And I want everyone to go and listen and download it and get involved.
Yeah, so the single's out now, Baby Had Your Fun. It's on all streaming platforms. So wherever you get it, Spotify, Apple Music, all Amazon, everything. So yeah, and it's out now. The video is out on YouTube. And yeah, go have a listen to it. It's fun, it's feel good. And yeah, it's out. And we all need a bit of positivity. And I promise that if you listen to it, it does make you feel quite happy. It's quite happy. It's a breakup song, but it's a happy breakup song.
Well, there we go. We need some happiness right now. Joe, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, there we go. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did chatting to Joe. He's an incredible guy. Make sure you go and download his new single. It's a wicked track. Go check it out on YouTube as well. The video is awesome, and you'll see what he means about the social distance dancing. It's fantastic. Right, coming up next week, we're going to be joined by a Hampshire-based author who's gone from running one of the biggest hotels in London to writing his first book. It's all about adaptability. You're going to love it. Massive thanks again to D'Artagnan Menswear in Chichester for their support as always. Make sure you give them a follow and check them out. Also, love your support as well. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or if you're listening on a podcast source, please do that. We really appreciate it. And why not write a review as well and let me know what you think about the podcast. We've got some great guests coming up over the next few weeks. Thank you so much for your support. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.